Winslow. I teach the large lecture classes for Bio 121, which is a majors level introduction to bio. There's roughly 200 students across 2 to 3 sections, depending on the semester. My tip for large classes, I think this came through with everyone in the discussion that we had, is try to keep your slides pretty simple. Visuals are pretty good, lots of text is generally pretty bad, but try to make sure it presents pretty well because there are students sitting pretty far back in large lectures. The other tip that I have is to try to use a very similar format. So assuming that you're using a PowerPoint kind of presentation, structure it the same way for most lectures, because that allows students to kind of see what's going on and get into a rhythm. And even if they're totally lost on the content, they have some idea for where they are in the lecture and what's happening.
So my tip for teaching large classes is to use technology. So a lot of the publishers that provide online platforms, they provide a lot of very useful tools and instruments, and not only for the student to use on their own when they're studying or reading the chapter, but I use those in class as a way to give little breaks to students, to change the rhythm a little bit. So instead of spending 15 minutes or an hour, 15 minutes just talking, I stop and I use some of these tools, online tools, that are usually provided by the publisher, but there are others. So Kahoot is another good example, just to engage the students and make technology your best friend in a large class.
Hi, I'm Anna Dempsey. I am professor of art history in the College of Visual and Performing Arts, and I teach the history of global art from the beginning of human time till the contemporary. So it's really lovely to stand right next to this veiled little sculpture person because it reminds me of what some of my students do. But I do have a lot of students in this class, maybe 110, and so a very large class, and this can be quite hard to reach all of them. So strategies. 1, I have learned less is more. Last year I had 50 slides for each hour in 15-minute class. This year, 24. That's quite a difference, with a couple of short videos interspersed in between. Last year, I tried to put students into groups and where they could do working class. Did not work because some of that group work continued into the next week. Not everybody shows up. With 102 students, not predictable. This year, I use iClickers. And so I can break up the class and they can respond to whatever. I sometimes try a goofy question, obvious question, sometimes a hard question, see where the class pulls out and how they answer. What I will try, based on my music colleagues' experience, is Kahoot. So a gaming kind of app to bring in students in a 110-person class into a more active learning space. These students do have art projects, so that's good. So that's it. I do focus the class for artists, so that's a good thing. That's always worked. But to get them to talk in class, students who really like to work individually, that's something I'm still working on.
I'm Jay Zisk, Associate Professor of English and Communication and Director of the Office of Faculty Development. One challenge that comes to mind when teaching a large class is trying to engage the maximum number of students possible in an efficient and meaningful way. One way I do this is through a 3-part scaffolded think, pair, share activity. I start by posing a generative question to my students, and this question is directly related to and aligned with my learning outcomes for the day. And I ask them to take 2 or 3 minutes to think about it on their own, in quiet. Then, in the second phase, I ask them to pair with a classmate, someone next to them, behind them, or in front of them, and exchange their ideas, and work together to write a 1 or 2 sentence takeaway point that they can then share with the entire class in the third phase of the activity. This Think, Pair, Share activity provides a way, even in a very large class, to engage almost every student in an act of thinking, putting an idea together, talking with a peer, and then sharing out with a larger group, which hopefully will inspire some meaningful dialogue for the remainder of the class session.